managing partner at Altitude Labs, and we are a digital transformation agency focusing on personalization.
Hi, my name is Bianca. I'm the co-founder and COO of Clare.ai. At Clare, we empower enterprise to have natural and consistent conversations at scale. The value that we bring is that we help companies automate as well as bring new revenue streams.
So why did you move to Hong Kong? And why did you start up a company in Hong Kong?
You know, using Hong Kong as a start, I think made a lot of sense for our industry. We're focused on financial institutions, so I think that gives us an advantage of using Hong Kong as a base, but also launching to other countries. How about you?
So I'm originally from Hong Kong, but I moved to San Francisco, and I met my partners there. So we started doing some small projects, and eventually we decided to move to Hong Kong as it was kind of a green field. So we decided to come back and change this whole process.
How was it in San Francisco? It's like the kind of tech capital of the world. A lot of people would have died to stay there. You know, what was your take at that time?
Hong Kong has a lot of financiers, right? And Silicon Valley actually has a lot of tech people. So imagine everyone in San Francisco being in the tech industry. There's actually a lot of those people. But when you're in Hong Kong, I feel you kind of stick out of the crowd.
I want to say something very interesting about the tech understanding in Hong Kong. Literally, every time I go to family dinners, people are like, oh, you're in IT. And they'll ask me all sort of questions like adding Apple Pay to their phones, how to set up WhatsApp, or things
They basically
like that.
think you work at the Apple Genius Bar, right?
Yes, I think so. You know, that awareness has to build up, I felt like in Hong Kong, because traditional industries or industries that have made a lot of money has not been in those areas, and the relative focus on tech investment is lower. From a company's perspective. So that's what we felt.
What we see a lot of companies doing is putting their IT department in a dungeon, in a basement somewhere, and that's tech, right? And that's something that's supposed to power their entire company now. That's really the wrong way to see things. When you hide the technologists behind your business vision and your business goals, there's no way to inject a backbone of technology in your business, right? So,
yeah, I totally agree. I think that's why Hong Kong has lagged behind, specifically on tech investment, because they're like, oh, I'm going to outsource a certain piece, and then off that goes. And then there hasn't been continuous investment in those areas.
I'm educating a lot of customers now that this is just the beginning of their journey, and it's going to go on forever. And it's going to get harder and harder. Can I ask, when you started your business, what was pitching to large corporates like? And until now, until now, like what has changed? And
I think I was part of a financial firm before, and it was like completely unheard of to talk to newer companies. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like they're like, don't waste my time, and they were quite judgmental, I would say. And obviously, my tech has always been there, but they weren't as excited about financial technologies like fintechs or even just like newer companies. They're just like not interested. From what we see now, I think there's a huge change in terms of attitude towards working with newer companies. I think there's a couple of things, right? Like first is you see the ecosystem maturing, and there are more options out there that they feel, oh, it's not a waste of my time. I think the other part is also the awareness, right? Like a lot of the people that they've known before who worked at a particular kind of function would have moved out to start their own companies in a way where they're like, oh, it brings a lot of credibility. I see that kind of attitude change a lot, but we've only been around for like a year and a half. So how about you?
We've been around for 4 years.
Yeah.
The stark change we see is being personable, but also finding an internal champion. Because a lot of times when we work with large corporates, right, you need to get to know the people inside. You need to understand where they're coming from and how they're making their decisions, right? So finding an internal champion for us was very, very helpful.
What do you think about like enterprise, kind of selling to enterprise, like in particularly Asia?
I have high hopes in selling to enterprises. I actually love the enterprise space.
Yeah.
Selling to consumers now takes a lot of money.
A lot of marketing efforts.
Yeah, and a lot of burn,
Yeah.
And I think our company is not in that stage. And I think that's another take on tech. There are some companies that are heavily funded. We've raised no capital. And we're taking a spin on the whole entrepreneurship journey. and we're seeing if we can survive and come out strong. So what challenges do you face in your business?
A lot.
Operationally, personally?
Yeah. I find it very interesting when people are like, oh, it's so good that you're a boss. I'm like, it's the worst job ever, right? You're always worried, and you need to worry about cash flow.
Yeah.
You need to manage, and literally everyone calls you, right? Like, I felt, handling that pressure is always kind of top of mind, and how do you juggle so many things that's happening at the same time, and making sure you make a right call towards what is the most important.
Do you have any tips and tricks?
I'm
To
still
manage? I mean,
am
you've been in business for
still-
about a year and a half.
I'm still learning for sure. But I felt management is an underappreciated skill and importance in newer companies. The reason why is people always put a lot of emphasis on hiring, and it is almost funny to think that after you hire a smart person, it would just go your way, right? Yeah, I mean, we've all
Because they go the other way.
Yes, they could go somewhere else as well. So it's always not as easy to be the bad person than the nice person. Like, nice person's usually quite easy, but like I think when you have to have the hard and difficult conversations with kind of any counterparts, that's where like I don't really want to do this. I'm not that motivated to do that. But I think just taking that and kind of like eating the frog is one of the things that we had to do. How about yourself?
Challenges for us?
Yeah.
As much as tech is technology focused, I think it's a very much a people's business. When you sell to someone, you're selling to a person, right? When you're hiring someone, you're talking to a person and a person's life and career, right? When you're talking to your partners, they're also a person. So to be a boss, you have to be a people's person. And I think one thing that's helped us really is to stay very organized when it comes to speaking to our staff, sectioning time off to talk about certain things. We're starting to think about training, right? When you go from a junior to a senior to a VP, and a VP and above, everyone's going to keep learning, so do you and I.
Yeah.
But sometimes staff might underappreciate that even managers have to learn too.
Yeah.
Because we don't know everything. A lot of times when you're in a small company, it's your first time building a company. So not only do you have to build a culture, you also have to take into account that you're learning on the job, and you have to do your best.
Yeah.
And you have to hope that you don't annoy anyone. You don't. But of course you do, I think.
Yeah.
I think realistically you do. But I think growing a thick skin and understanding that, whatever you do, whether it's good or bad, you're doing the right thing. And you're doing a sincere thing and a genuine thing from your heart, and you're not hurting anybody, I think it's okay.
Yeah, I think like
I-
that is super important, like not hurting anyone.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
being honest, pays a long way. Like, although it's a difficult conversation to have in the
Honesty
beginning.
can hurt.
Yeah.
Honesty can hurt really, and it can pierce someone,
Yeah.
but I think that's the best thing you can do for someone.
What are some of the hard, like most difficult conversations that you had?
I think what's difficult is actually begging. When someone thinks it's time for them to move on, and you think that there's still so much more to learn, you're humbling yourself to make them stay and to explain to them why they should stay. And I think that's a pretty hard conversation, right? Because you're literally begging. Being humble and being confident at the same time it's very mixed.
You're always kind of like you
Yeah.
have two brains, and
Yeah.
you're like, okay, at one moment.
Yeah,
I
like,
need
you're
to-
like schizophrenic.
Yeah.
Because on the one hand, you have to be humble.
Yeah.
And you should be humble. On the other hand,
You have to be confident
yeah.
in what you're doing.
yeah,
right?
and you believe in what you're saying. So, and it can come off as arrogance. It can come off as, overly confident, right? So, how do you balance the two? I think.
And I also felt like sometimes people, especially us being females, being forceful is seen as, for the lack of a better word, bitch. And
Too alpha.
Yeah, like too alpha, and people do have like, oh, like you should behave a certain way. And I thought that, I think Hong Kong is good, to be honest. Like, I felt no one has ever kind of looked at me and said, oh, it's you here for a meeting? Like, no one has ever like told me that. Felt like in some other cultures I've had that kind of experience, whereby people like, why are you here? But I have to say, like for me so far, Hong Kong has been pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't know about you. Like
For us too, I think it's great. Our company now is 50% female, and we're a huge, we're a huge engineering team, and I'm pretty shocked myself. I was able to achieve that by accident.
Yeah.
But I think for us,
we're at 40%, just so you know.
I think for us, it's all about who you are.
Yeah.
I think having female actually balances a lot of the male perspectives.
On a quick tip, I think actually companies with a female co-founder has a higher chance of success.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like it's fact.
Oh, okay.
Though I think VCs have traditionally injected capital in more male-founded companies. But in Hong Kong, things just like move quite quickly.
Yeah. You know, in the US, if you start up something in the Valley and you're getting to you're trying to sell to an enterprise and a big corporate, it could take you, the sales cycle could take about 3 years.
Wow.
To get up to the
C-levels.
Yeah, the C-levels to actually make a decision. But in Hong Kong, I feel like that's
not as
it's not as long.
Our rule of thumb is if you get to 5 meetings, then you're good.
Oh, wow.
That's what we felt. Because we looked at a lot of our conversations. For those who are keen, you know, once you know that they have a budget, they have people, they have the strategy that supports it, then I felt like once you get to 5 meetings, then people are pretty comfortable with you on a business standpoint.
That's a great rule of thumb.
Yeah, it's just easy.
Analyzing your sales funnel.
Yeah.
Do you go through a tender process? And how do you feel about a tender process? Or
it's painful.
and how do you approach a tender process?
Yeah. So we go through 2 things, like either through like a pilot, which is smaller and faster, or a tender process. It all depends on procurement. What we observe is more and more companies have a shorter procurement process for, you know, like quick tryouts that they want. So we see some companies have things like POC paths, or a POC meaning proof of concept paths.
What we've been advising a lot of our customers is, you know, doing a paid POC is very different from just a free proof of concept.
Yeah.
Because I think when you have a paid proof of concept, it allows both parties to take the problem solving very seriously, right? The problem, I guess, we see with non-paid proof of concepts is that I think the 2 outcomes are not aligned.
Yeah.
And
their expectations are
always one expectation is more than the other. It almost never ends up snowballing into something like a real deal. Voicing out that it should be paid it is very important.
Yeah.
Right? I think for all small companies who want to work with large companies.
Yes, I agree.
It's realistic to think that you don't get every single deal and you don't win every single deal.
Yeah.
Right? But what I don't get is that when you ask for feedback,
they don't give
and when
it.
when you ask for a reason, they don't give it.
Oh, and we're so pretty good with that. Yeah.
And so I always reach out, but I don't always get a feedback. And so how is one supposed to learn
when you don't?
When we don't even know how we lost it and in the first place. So that sometimes frustrates me. Because we're in this position because we want to learn, you know, and we want to learn from our mistakes if we made a mistake, right?
What do you set aside time for that you found, oh, like, I'm so glad I've done that?
So I think the most important thing is getting to know the family backgrounds of our staff.
Oh.
Yeah. I think it's really important to understand how they were brought up, where their background is, you know, and what their background is, right? So I think it influences a lot of who they are as a person, how they act in your company. So yeah, I try to understand what kind of role they play in their family. Family values is what I learn most about my staff and where they come from. What are some mistakes that you've encountered?
This is so tough because I wish I've listened more carefully to our team feedback earlier. That there are a lot of things that, you know, I mean, all of us spend at least a good 40, 50 hours a week at the company, and they would have noticed things that would be avoided or not wasted if we were to listen earlier. You know, there's always like, you know, you listen, and you don't really like kind of act to it. So I think your point on organization is really good. I think the other more painful thing that we've learned is we have to be full ass in everything, not half ass. That speaks to focus. That speaks to attributing a reason towards why we failed in a certain thing, and I think that's very true. Like you cannot win every single deal. It's unrealistic. So we've also tried to say no to more things in a way where it gives us more time to really do 150% on one single thing that we found it extremely important. What are some mistakes that you made that were really painful?
Mistakes we've made was to not communicate our vision clear enough and often enough to our team. I think when it comes to the vision, the founders are usually very aligned, but when you don't constantly communicate it in various ways to your staff, it hurts you because they can get very lost. Yeah, somewhere along the 2 or 3 year mark, we were so deep into what we were doing that we kind of lost ourselves because we were riding on a high.
Yeah,
and
we're like, ooh.
and we just thought everyone was on board, and we kind of lost ourselves. And we did not clarify enough. We did not do it often enough, and it should come in various forms. I now have learned that it shouldn't just be you chanting the mantra. You should find creative ways to express the vision all the time.
Yeah.
Oh.